bucket dropped and didn't stop, like the ground under it wasn't there anymore. For a half second, the excavator floated, tracks whining as the stick overextended, hydraulics shrieking like somebody pinched a hose shut. Then the whole machine lurched forward and settled wrong, nose dipping into the cut. I snapped my hand up, flat palm, instinctive. The stop sign you throw when you're about to inherit somebody else's mistake. Kill it, I said. Rick cut the throttle and shut it down. The diesel clattered once and went quiet. That silent hit harder than the noise ever does. No engines, no beepers, just wind over dirt and the far-off hiss of traffic from the county road, like the rest of the world kept moving and we'd stepped out of it. Dust hung in the air over the cut. It didn't drift the way it should. It sank straight down, fast, like the hole had somewhere to pull it. I walked over to the edge and looked. The brake was clean, square, 90 degrees. Dirt doesn't fail in right angles. I'd sat through enough pre-construction briefings to know what that shape meant on paper. Utility chases, old infrastructure, decommissioned access. The kind of thing that gets a neat label and a standard procedure so nobody has to imagine why it's there. Rectangles meant someone had planned ahead. Somebody had signed off. Ah, great, Rick muttered. That ain't natural. Rick wasn't a nervous guy. He'd been running iron since he was 17, back when you could still smoke in the cab and nobody pretended it was good for you. He'd buried busted foundations, old farm trash, dead septic tanks, whole cars once. If Rick said something wasn't right, it meant his body had noticed before his brain could talk him out of it. Luis came up on my left, helmet pushed back, hands on his hips. He was shorter than both of us, compact, careful in a way that wasn't timid. He watched things like they might remember how you treated them. What'd you hit? He asked. Air, Rick said. That's the problem. The bucket had punched through a thin concrete cap. No rebar, no mesh, just a lid. Sloppy pour, low-strength concrete mix. Something meant to close, not carry. Under it was empty space. A void. Rectangular. Deliberate. My stomach tightened in that slow, climbing way. The feeling you get when you realize a choice is already reaching for you. Everybody clear, I called. Boots only. Nobody down without me. You want shoring? Rick asked. I shook my head. No, it's not deep enough, but we need a light. Luis already had his flashlight out. He always did. He leaned over and swept the beam across the inside. Walls are poured, he said. Sheet mix, big aggregate. You can see the bleed lines. What is it? Rick asked. Luis didn't answer right away. His eyes and light lingered in the corners. Somebody smoothed these, he said, by hand. That was the first time the hair on my arms lifted. I'd felt that little lift once before, years ago, different site. Training yard behind a DOT annex where they'd poured sample forms to show us what to look for. The instructor had joked about it, tapping the concrete with a pen, telling us not to overthink shapes. Most of the time it's nothing, he said. I remember thinking, even then, that most of the time was doing a lot of work. I climbed down into the cut. Soil was damp against my shins, colder than the air. The smell hit as soon as my boots touched the bottom. Cold, mineral, sealed away. Not rot, not gas. Something faintly sweet underneath, like old disinfectant that had lost an argument. Luis followed me down, careful not to kick anything loose. The void was chest deep on me, about 6 feet long, 3, maybe 4 wide. Dimensions my brain recognized before I could stop it. On the floor, half buried in silt, was a work glove. Not dropped, not tossed, folded. The fingers were tucked in like someone had put it down neatly, meaning to come back. I stared at it for too long. Luis's light moved away. See that? He asked. Along the far wall, caught in the concrete seam where it met the dirt, was a strip of clear plastic. Poly vapor barrier, the cheap stuff. It had been tucked like a liner before the pour. And embedded halfway into the wall, brittle with age, was a white zip tie. The tail stuck out like a mistake someone decided to live with. Rick's voice floated down from above. You seeing bones? He asked. Luis looked at me first. I could tell he didn't want to answer, like the word itself might flip a switch somewhere. No, I said quickly, too quickly. Nothing like that. Which was true, and somehow worse. Luis swept the beam again. It caught something blue. A sneaker. Small, child size, blue canvas. Sun bleached on one side only, like it had been exposed before someone decided it needed to be underground. Luis froze. That's not old, he said. No, I said, it's not. Behind the sneaker, scratched into the concrete after it cured, were marks. 3 vertical lines, not numbers, not measurements, just lines, all about chest height. Luis lifted his arm without thinking, lined up his shoulder with them, then dropped it like he'd burned himself. Those ain't tally marks, he said. My mouth was dry. I didn't answer. Rick leaned over the edge. Well, what the hell is it? I climbed out first. The air above felt too warm, too normal. Luis climbed out slower, wiping his hands on his vest like he could scrub the idea away. Rick tried to break it the way he always did, by making it smaller. Probably some idiot burying junk to avoid dump fees, he said. People do dumb stuff. Luis didn't smile. Why cap it? Luis asked. Rick shrugged. I don't know, because they're idiots. Luis turned to me. You see the size, he said. You see the marks? I felt heat crawl up my neck. Luis, I said, came out as a warning. That's regulation length, Luis said quietly. Modern. That's not an accident. Rick blinked. Regulation for what? Luis didn't answer Rick. He kept his eyes on me. I remembered the training video. DOT job near a cemetery expansion years back. Stupid online module with cartoon diagrams and cheerful narration about what to do if you encountered human remains. I remembered the measurements, the clean lines. I hadn't thought about it in years. I thought about it now. We got a schedule, Rick said, leaning against the track. Concrete trucks don't wait. If we call this in, they shut us down. Everybody stands around. You ready to explain that? It's not the only reason, Luis said. Rick snorted. It's the main one. Luis's voice dropped. If we fill it, he said, nobody has to look. Rick's jaw tightened. You got remains? Rick asked. You got blood? You got anything that triggers a report? Because if you don't, this is an obstruction. We remove it, we proceed. He said it like he was reading the manual, because he was. Well, we all were. I could hear my own voice from safety meetings. Unidentified subsurface obstruction. Remove and proceed if non-hazardous. I thought about the binder in my truck, the one with coffee stains and dog-eared pages. I thought about the email chains that start over one word, possible, suspicious, and end with somebody's name attached forever. Take photos, I said, wide shots, then we'll break it and backfill. Luis stared at me. That's it, he asked. That's it, I said. The words felt rehearsed as soon as I said them, like I'd been carrying them around since the moment the bucket dropped, waiting for the right place to set them down. There was a strange comfort in deciding, like the ground firming back up under my boots. Once you call it debris, it behaves like debris. It stops asking things of you. Rick let out a breath. Good, thank you. Luis didn't move. Mark, he said, my name sounding heavier than it should. If we do this, it's gone. Petty anger flared up, hot and defensive. You want to be the guy who shuts down a site over a shoe? I snapped. You gonna pay everybody's hours while they investigate a box of nothing? Luis flinched, then hardened. It's not nothing, he said. Prove it, I said. The second the word left my mouth, I knew I'd crossed something. Rick jumped in, fast. Enough, he said. We do our job, we go home. The breaker chewed through the cap. Concrete cracked and collapsed inwards. The walls came apart easier than they should have, like they were never meant to last, only long enough. Rick climbed down and hooked the bucket in. The glove vanished under fill. The sneaker caught the edge and tore instead of breaking clean, fabric popping like something cheap refusing to die right. I turned away. Luis said nothing. We backfilled, we compacted. Rick ran the plate compactor until the soil sounded right, solid, obedient. I watched the machine vibrate over the rectangle like we were tamping down a thought. In my truck, I filled out the daily log. Unidentified subsurface concrete debris removed. No hazardous materials observed. Work resumed. I attached the photos. The system said upload successful. That night, I showered until the water felt cold. It didn't feel like it reached my skin. I woke up at 2:11 a.m. with dust in my mouth and the height of those marks replaying in my head, chest level, same spot, standing. The next day, Luis was different. Not his normal quiet. This was tight, coiled. He kept checking his phone like it might tell him something was wrong or right. You good? I asked. He nodded too fast. You keep the photos? He asked. They auto-uploaded, I said. Auto-uploaded doesn't mean auto-exist, he muttered. A week later, the slab crew called. Soft spot, the foreman said, same rectangle. Pumps when we screed. Engineers blamed soil variability. They over-excavated, recompacted, poured again. Still, it came back. Later, a laborer rolled his ankle there, swore. Nobody laughed the second time. Then the email came. Can you resend the obstruction photos? Ours didn't archive. For one stupid second, I found them and felt relief. The next morning, they were gone. The report now read, no subsurface anomalies encountered. I hadn't written that. Luis found me staring at the screen. They took it, he said. They didn't take anything, I said. The system... He cut me off. The system fixed you, Luis said. After that, the rebar day came. They laid the mats out in clean rows, human-length rectangles, evenly spaced, structurally perfect. I stopped mid-step, counted, lost count, felt embarrassed for even thinking it. Rick didn't notice. Luis did, but he said nothing. Just looked at me like he could see what shape my thought had taken. You okay, Rick asked. Yeah, I said, just tired. The concrete trucks came. The pour went smooth. Later, an inspector asked if I'd worked the site before. I said no. He checked the box. That night, I dreamed of standing in a smooth concrete box, chest lined up with marks that were already there. Sometimes I drive past that strip mall and think about how easy it was. Not to build it, but to make sure nobody ever had to look.